Oklahoma has a landlord-friendly late fee framework with minimal state-level regulation, giving landlords broad discretion while still requiring basic reasonableness. The governing law is found in the Oklahoma Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, Oklahoma Statutes Title 41, along with general contract principles. If you're a landlord or tenant in Oklahoma, the state provides a straightforward environment where the lease governs most late fee details. Let's start with the basics. Oklahoma does not impose a specific statutory dollar cap or percentage cap on late fees. There is no rule that says the fee must be under a certain amount or percentage. The fee is governed by the lease terms and general contract principles, specifically the requirement that the fee be reasonable and not function as an unenforceable penalty. Oklahoma does not mandate a grace period by statute. There is no state law requiring a specific number of days before a late fee can be charged. If your lease says rent is due on the 1st and a late fee applies on the 2nd, that's enforceable under Oklahoma law. However, standard practice among Oklahoma landlords is to include a grace period of 3 to 5 days, which is considered industry standard and reduces disputes. The key legal principle is reasonableness under Oklahoma contract law. A late fee is essentially a liquidated damages provision, enforceable if the fee represents a reasonable pre-estimate of the landlord's anticipated damages and the actual damages from late payment are difficult to calculate precisely at the time the lease is signed. A fee that is grossly disproportionate to the landlord's actual costs can be struck down as an unenforceable penalty. What's reasonable in Oklahoma? Industry standards and typical practice suggest that a flat fee of $25 to $75 or a percentage-based fee of 5 to 10% of the monthly rent is generally defensible. Oklahoma's rental market is moderate. Rents in the Oklahoma City metro typically range from $800 to $1,500, and rents in Tulsa are similar. A fee of $50 to $75 on a $1,000 rent, 5 to 7.5%, is well within the reasonable range. The lease must clearly state the late fee terms. The lease should specify the rent due date, any grace period, the exact fee amount or formula, when the fee triggers, whether additional charges apply for continued non-payment, and whether the fee is defined as additional rent. Oklahoma courts expect written agreement. A late fee that isn't documented in the lease is difficult to enforce. Compounding late fees in Oklahoma are governed by the lease and the reasonableness standard. A single one-time fee after the grace period is the simplest and most defensible approach. If your lease includes daily or weekly charges for continued non-payment, the total must remain reasonable. A compounding structure that could produce total fees approaching 20% of the monthly rent within a few weeks is increasingly vulnerable to challenge. Most Oklahoma landlords use a single flat fee to keep it simple. The interaction between late fees and the eviction process in Oklahoma is fast. Oklahoma allows just 5 days' notice for non-payment of rent before the landlord can begin eviction proceedings. This relatively fast timeline means that chronic late payment escalates to eviction quickly, and late fee provisions interact with the eviction timeline almost immediately. Whether unpaid late fees can be included in the 5-day notice depends on how the lease defines them. If late fees are defined as additional rent, they can be included in the total amount demanded. If treated as a separate charge, they may need to be pursued independently. Best practice: define late fees as additional rent in your lease. Oklahoma's eviction process through the courts is moderately paced after the 5-day notice period. The amount demanded must be accurate at every stage, including any late fees. Non-compliant late fees included in the demand give the tenant grounds to challenge the amount, which can delay the process. Oklahoma requires landlords to hold the security deposit in an escrow account at a federally insured financial institution in Oklahoma. The deposit must be returned within 45 days. There is no statutory cap on the deposit amount. Unpaid late fees can be deducted from the deposit if the lease authorizes the deduction and the fees are reasonable. The landlord must provide an itemized statement of deductions. For tenants receiving Housing Choice Voucher Assistance, Oklahoma landlords should not charge late fees when the housing authority's portion is delayed due to processing. The tenant cannot control the authority's payment timeline. If the tenant's portion is paid on time, the late fee should apply only when the tenant's own payment is actually late. Oklahoma's military population is significant and affects late fee dynamics near major installations. Tinker Air Force Base near Oklahoma City is one of the largest Air Force installations in the country, with a massive workforce. Fort Sill near Lawton is the Army's primary fires training center. Altus Air Force Base and Vance Air Force Base near Enid also generate military rental demand. Military pay is predictable, the 1st and 15th of each month, and most military tenants pay reliably. When late payments occur from military tenants, they're typically related to PCS transitions or deployment disruptions that resolve quickly. The standard 3 to 5 day grace period accommodates most of these short delays. Fort Sill's training mission creates specific dynamics. The constant rotation of trainees and instructors means frequent turnover, and new military tenants may need a cycle or two to establish direct deposit and allotment arrangements. Some Lawton landlords build this expectation into their onboarding process, providing clear payment instructions and confirming direct deposit setup within the first few days of the tenancy. Oklahoma's energy economy creates cyclical dynamics that affect late payment patterns. When oil and gas prices are high and drilling activity is strong, energy workers are employed and pay reliably. When prices drop and activity slows, workers may lose hours or jobs, and late payments increase in energy-dependent communities. The scoop and stack formations in central Oklahoma and western Oklahoma drilling areas are particularly affected by commodity price cycles. Landlords in energy-dependent communities should anticipate that late payment rates will fluctuate with oil prices. During downturn periods, aggressive late fee enforcement against workers who've lost their jobs is unlikely to result in collection and may accelerate vacancy. A communication-first approach during downturns often produces better outcomes. The Tulsa Remote Program has attracted thousands of remote workers from across the country, many with strong financial profiles who pay reliably. However, some Tulsa remote participants are exploring whether Tulsa is a long-term fit, and a small percentage may break leases or experience payment disruptions as their remote work situations change. From a practical standpoint, Oklahoma's rental markets are concentrated in 2 major metros with secondary markets across the state. Oklahoma City is the state's largest market. The economy is driven by energy, aerospace, and defense, including Tinker AFB, healthcare, government, and a growing technology sector. Most Oklahoma City landlords charge flat fees in the range of $35 to $75, with a 3 to 5 day grace period. Late fee enforcement is standard practice across the metro. Tinker AFB's massive workforce generates both military and civilian rental demand in Midwest City, Del City, and Southeast Oklahoma City. Military tenants pay reliably. Late fee enforcement is minimal for this demographic. Tulsa has a moderate market driven by energy, aerospace, healthcare, and the growing remote worker population. Late fee practices in Tulsa are similar to Oklahoma City, flat fees with standard grace periods. Norman, home to the University of Oklahoma, has a tight student market. Student late payments correlate with financial aid disbursement at the beginning of each semester. Most landlords near OU expect this pattern and build a 5 day grace period that typically covers the processing delay. Stillwater, home to Oklahoma State, has a similar student dynamic. Lawton, adjacent to Fort Sill, has a heavily military market where payment reliability is high, but new tenant setup delays are common. Edmond has a strong family-oriented market. Broken Arrow and Owasso in the Tulsa suburbs have growing markets. Enid, near Vance AFB, and Altus, near Altus AFB, have smaller military-influenced markets. Muskogee, Bartlesville, and smaller Oklahoma communities have more affordable markets where late fee amounts should reflect lower rent levels. One best practice for Oklahoma landlords: set your late fee at a level that creates a meaningful incentive while remaining defensible. In Oklahoma City and Tulsa, where rents typically range from $800 to $1,500, a fee of $50 to $75, roughly 5 to 7%, is the sweet spot. In smaller markets with lower rents, $25 to $40 is more appropriate. Another best practice: include a grace period of at least 3 to 5 days, even though Oklahoma doesn't mandate one. A grace period is industry standard, demonstrates good faith, and prevents disputes from tenants whose payments are delayed by a day or two due to weekends, holidays, or processing times. 5 days is the most common standard across the state. A third best practice: apply your late fee consistently across all tenants and document every instance. Oklahoma's diverse tenant population, including energy workers, military personnel, students, and general population, means you're dealing with tenants from every demographic. Consistent enforcement prevents fair housing issues. Keep records of every late payment, every grace period calculation, every fee charged, and every communication. For the complete guide to Oklahoma late fee laws, visit tenantscreeningbackgroundcheck.com. Subscribe to our channel for every state in our late fee law series.